At 2 o'clock this morning, the world crossed a line it hasn't touched since the fall of Manuel Noriega. Low-flying aircraft over Caracas, 7 explosions near Fort Tiuna, and now Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, is in handcuffs on a United States Navy ship. Officially, it was a counter-narco-terrorism raid. Unofficially, it may have just opened the door to civil war. So the question is simple and terrifying: who is running Venezuela right now? The raid began at 2 a.m. local time. Residents near Fort Tiuna, the regime's most fortified military complex, reported the roar of low-flying aircraft slicing through the darkness. Then came the blasts. At least 7 precision explosions tearing open outer defenses. At the very same moment, half of southern Caracas went dark. U.S. Cyber Command had cut the power and severed communications, blinding Venezuelan radar and air defenses before they ever knew what was coming. Inside the blackout, Delta Force operators moved in. Breach charges tore through reinforced doors. Gunfire echoed in short, controlled bursts. According to U.S. officials, several Venezuelan guards were injured, but no American operators were killed. Behind layers of concrete and steel, the target waited. Nicolas Maduro, surrounded by loyal guards and his inner circle, suddenly found the fortress he trusted turned into a trap he could no longer control. What happened next is already the stuff of classified debriefs. Sources inside the Pentagon say Maduro tried to negotiate, demanding safe passage and guarantees for his family. Instead, faced with a room full of American operators and no way out, he surrendered after a brief standoff. Minutes later, he and First Lady Celia Flores were in restraints, extracted under heavy guard from the ruined compound and moved to an undisclosed airfield on the outskirts of Caracas. By dawn, the mission had a name: Operation Absolute Resolve, a strike nested inside a wider campaign called Operation Southern Spear. Maduro and Flores were flown to the Caribbean and transferred aboard the USS Iwo Jima, an American amphibious assault ship now steaming north. Its unannounced destination, the Southern District of New York, where a federal indictment was already waiting, unsealed and deadly serious.
This isn't just a daring military raid, it's a legal gambit with a historical playbook. The United States is treating a sitting foreign president not as a head of state, but as the leader of a criminal cartel. To understand how Washington justifies that, you have to look at the charges, and at the last time America did something like this, Panama, 1989.
Attorney General Pam Bondi has confirmed it. Maduro is being charged with narco-terrorism. Prosecutors allege he is the head of the Cartel de los Soles, the Cartel of the Suns, an organization embedded inside the Venezuelan military that has used state planes, forts, and soldiers to move cocaine into the United States for nearly 20 years. Not a rogue faction, not a side hustle. The state itself weaponized as a drug cartel. Legally, this echoes the Noriega case. In 1989, the U.S. invaded Panama, seized its dictator, and flew him to Miami to stand trial on drug charges. The theory was simple. If a foreign leader turns his government into a criminal enterprise that targets the United States, he loses the protections of sovereignty. Now that controversial doctrine is being dusted off and pointed at Caracas, and at anyone who supported Maduro's network. Back in Caracas, the legal theory doesn't matter. Power does. With Maduro gone, Venezuela is leaderless. Vice President Delcy Rodriguez is, on paper, the acting president, but she has vanished from public view, demanding proof of life for Maduro and refusing to appear on state television. The presidential palace is quiet. The official motorcades are still. For the first time in years, there is no clear center of authority in Miraflores. On television, Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez has called the raid a kidnapping and an act of war. Tanks are rolling through Caracas, checkpoints blooming at key intersections. But there's one thing the army has not done. It has not fired on American forces. Not yet. Officers know that a single missile, a single shot at the U.S. could trigger a conflict they cannot win and might split their own ranks in the process. On the ground, the split is stark. In Caracas, streets that once filled with anti-government protests are eerily empty. Families stay indoors, listening for gunfire, watching for smoke on the horizon. But in Doral, Florida, home to one of the largest Venezuelan exile communities in the U.S., people are pouring into the streets, waving flags, cheering, lighting fireworks. For them, this is the fall of a dictator. For those still inside Venezuela, it could be the start of something much darker. Outside the hemisphere, the alarms are blaring. Russia and Iran have condemned the operation as an illegal act of aggression, a kidnapping wrapped in the language of counterterrorism. Russian warships already operating in the region are now under intense scrutiny from U.S. intelligence. One miscalculation, one radar lock, one close pass at sea, and a covert raid to arrest a president could snowball into a direct confrontation between nuclear-armed states. Closer to home, Colombia is bracing for impact. President Gustavo Petro has ordered the border sealed, fearing a surge of refugees or a desperate military response from what remains of the Maduro regime. Satellite images show increased troop movements near key crossings. If Venezuela fractures, the shockwaves won't stop at its frontiers. They will spill into Colombia, Brazil, the Caribbean, and every economy tied to oil coming out of the Orinoco Belt.
So where does this leave Venezuela and the world? On one ship in the Caribbean, the former president awaits a U.S. courtroom. On land, generals weigh their loyalties, opposition leaders weigh their chances, and millions of ordinary Venezuelans weigh whether to flee, to fight, or to wait. Operation Absolute Resolve has answered one question. Can the U.S. capture a sitting foreign president? But it has opened a far more dangerous one. Who will fill the vacuum he leaves behind?
In the days ahead, watch three things: the streets of Caracas, the statements from Moscow, and the courtroom in New York. Together, they will decide whether Operation Absolute Resolve becomes a turning point or the opening chapter of a much wider conflict. If you want a deeper breakdown of how this could reshape Latin American politics and U.S. power, make sure you're subscribed and tell me in the comments, did Washington just remove a dictator or light the fuse of the next crisis?